Having a whole new generation of Pokemon among us now means that there are probably going to be some new evolutions or evolution methods worth discussing. Actually, even if it's not technically a new generation, there still seems to be new evolution methods introduced. Look no further than Legends Arceus. Bascu Legion, anyone? Yeah, and once again, now that Scarlet and Violet have been out for at least a little while now, I have to ask, which are the hardest Pokemon to evolve in the game? Now, before we get right into things and start the list, I'd like to point out that these are not in order, just like the Legends Arceus list we did almost a year ago. I feel the idea of what makes an evolution difficult is a bit more subjective than other list topics. It's also a little harder to differentiate tedious and difficult when comparing some of these cases. As we go through the list, this will become even more obvious. Now, without any further ado, let's take a look at these. Before we get started though, we have a brand new exclusive series over on Mystic Umbreon Shorts. I'm going to be taking a Pokemon of your guys' choice and seeing how well it performs in a Scarlet and Violet playthrough, should said Pokemon be on your team. This series will go up once a week every Sunday, so be sure to head over to Mystic Umbreon Shorts to check that out. Also, over on Mystic Reads, I'm reading the Yaju Sanin a Naruto fanfic, and Road to be a Pokemon Master Kanto edition, where Ash and Serena have a Kanto adventure together. I will leave links for both of these channels in the description and in the iCard above. Starting off our list is Palafin. I find this one a bit weirder to evolve than it should be. But again, Palafin is a pretty weird Pokemon itself, so maybe they couldn't just let you hit level 38 and call it a day. To get your Finizen to evolve, you need to hit at least level 38 while in a Union Circle. Then it'll evolve into Palafin. This is pretty easy if you know someone with the game you can just hook up with in order to accomplish this. But you do ultimately need a friend that plays, or at least the ability to share a lobby code with randoms online willing to help you. Obviously, there are players that won't immediately know about this, and others who may just avoid Pokemon that require weird evolution mechanics. I can also imagine some very young players also not really understanding that this is how this would ever work. Though I imagine they would figure it out one way or another eventually, it's just really odd for some people that this type of stuff is an evolution requirement in the series. That being said, when you consider how powerful Palafin is, this still feels like a small thing to do for such a Pokemon with an insane signature ability. Next, let's just get this out of the way. Trade evolutions. Getting these evolutions won't be reliable for people who don't have friends to trade with or at least have some type of fortunate circumstances. These also get harder to get as the generation gets older. And once the generation comes out, it only continues to get more difficult for certain Pokemon if they don't make it in or aren't normally obtainable. But what makes this stick out more now going into Scarlet and Violet is how it was handled in Legends Arceus. The game didn't emphasize things like player-to-player trading in the way traditional Pokemon games did. And as such, you could evolve Pokemon that would normally require trading by using items like the linking cord. Now, I'm not saying we need to repeat the same exact requirement, but I do think an alternate method for some Pokemon would be nice. I understand they want players to use certain features and interact with others, but trading online isn't exactly a unique concept anymore. And it was more interesting when you had to do it in person with even older generations, albeit far more difficult to deal with if you didn't know anyone. At least there was more of a novelty. That being said, it's still not difficult, but I'm sure at least half the people watching this think trade evolution and still just can't help but groan. There's also more simple evolutions that I'd still consider among the more difficult or tedious to evolve, like Larvesta and Volcarona. This is for a few reasons. It's already not exactly a common Pokemon to come across in the first place, but it doesn't evolve until level 59. Larvesta is overall pretty weak for something that won't evolve until the late game, making it a struggle to really want to bother leveling during the bulk of your actual playthrough. Of course, if you love Volcarona that much, you won't care, but you'll definitely feel the length of how long it takes to get this thing to evolve. At the very least, Volcarona is consistently a pretty strong Pokemon, so it's another case of the player being rewarded for their patience. Now it's time to talk about a new Pokemon that you all knew was going to be here, Gholdengo. In order to evolve your Gimmighoul, you gotta collect 999 Gimmighoul coins, which spawn basically anywhere throughout the entire region of Paldea, in both their roaming and chest forms. It's a pretty crazy method to introduce for an evolution that will definitely take time. You'll encounter them while playing normally, but if you really want to get the amount you need, you'll need to specifically keep an eye out for them. Similar to some of the other Pokemon mentioned on the list, you'll be rewarded well for your efforts, as Gholdengo is a pretty strong Pokemon with a lot of personality. These coins though, they can appear seemingly anywhere. It's not the sort of thing where you can camp respawns of coins so easily, as the chest form Gimmighoul that give you the largest amount of coins only have a 5% chance of respawning each day. So you'll really need to be on the lookout for them around all of Paldea. Of course, these are just the roaming Gimmighoul that are in large abundance with a 50% chance of respawning. But with those, you'd basically be doing it nearly 900 times, as they only give a few coins on average. And that just sounds awful, so just stick to chests as your primary source of Gimmighoul coins. At least if you're not rushing it, playing the game normally and paying attention will inevitably award you enough coins for this unique evolution. Let's go back to familiar territory with pseudo-legendaries in general. Nothing has really changed regarding how tedious these can be to evolve, and therefore they're still technically among the most difficult to evolve in Scarlet and Violet. The two that really stick out are still Hydreigon and Dragapult. Both evolution lines don't reach their second form until level 50, which is just ridiculous and makes leveling them feel like even more of a chore. At least most fans will agree that Dino is pretty cute, but still. Leveling has become generally easier in recent gens, but I can't help but try to imagine how it would feel if Hydreigon was a Gen 1 Pokemon. It'd make leveling Dragonite seem rather tame in comparison. Next, let's talk about a new feature, the Let's Go mechanic. I find it hard to tell if fans as a whole actually like this new mechanic or not sometimes. But either way, with its introduction, it's also now a requirement to evolve certain Pokemon, those being Pawmot, Brambleghast, and Robska. I'm going to guess that most people find this specific part of this new feature pretty annoying as a requirement. Obviously, I agree to a certain extent since I've put it in this video, but I'm not sure if I'd say it's that bad. If you're not familiar, it's only after walking 1,000 steps and then leveling up that your Pokemon will evolve. There's no challenge or creativity to it. You just need to walk around with your Pokemon a bunch. Honestly, now that I've said it out loud, yeah, that's pretty lame. At least Palma is a pretty cute Pokemon to walk around with. There's also a few exploits you may have seen that try to get your Pokemon to run in place or in circles, such as jumping on the roof of a Pokemon Center. I don't hate this feature, but I do think this evolution aspect isn't the most well thought out. Also, if you're not using any weird methods to make this faster, your Pokemon actually isn't as fast as your regular run speed. So you can't just totally mindlessly just run up some road until you've reached 1,000 steps. You need to actually slow down and make sure you haven't outrun your little guy. Okay, that's another thing that sounds even worse than I realized now that I've said it out loud. Let's just go to our final entry on the list. The last Pokemon evolution I'd like to talk about is Dusk Form Lycanroc. If you don't know ahead of time what to do in order to get this form, then like a few other evolutions, you basically play the entire game without ever knowing what it even is. There might be some NPC dialogue in Scarlet and Violet that could give a hint at it, but even so, this method is very specific. You need to find a Rockruff with the Own Tempo ability, and then evolve it when the sun is setting so it can become the Dusk Form Lycanroc. Previously, it had to be within the 5 PM hour, but time in Scarlet and Violet is a bit different. It doesn't run on real time. As for finding a Rockruff with this ability, it isn't immediately obvious that it'll have it. You need to be prepared. The Own Tempo ability will resist Intimidate, for example. So if you have a Pokemon with that, that's an easy way to know instantly without wasting any time. Due to the changes with how the time of day works, you have about 6 minutes during sunset to evolve your Rockruff with Own Tempo in the Dusk Form Lycanroc, or else you'll need to try again. If you understand these rules to its evolution, it's still not that terrible, but it's still something that's very easy to miss if you don't know about it, as well as easy to mess up if you're not fully paying attention. If Lycanroc is like maybe your favorite Pokemon, then you probably did this as early as you could and didn't even mind the process all that much. But if you're just trying to do this for the sake of completion, I can't imagine that this isn't one of the last things to do. Because while an exception, it's not that terrible, it just feels bad when you think about the specifics. That first step of preparing to settle down and seeing if you can find that Rockruff with the right ability is the part that most people will be annoyed with. And those are the hardest evolutions in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, though it might be a bit of a struggle to define something that's actually hard, when in this case, much of it is rather tedious. Thankfully, the series has done a recent job of making most evolutions a bit less tedious over time, at least for most methods. Try to imagine doing 1,000 steps in Pokemon Yellow. To get something to evolve, or collecting 1,000 coins at an even slower rate. The pacing for these things has mostly gotten better. Even so, many players will still find something like getting into a Union Circle or trading online to be a turnoff for them. I guess it's just tradition that a new generation of kids might need to go through the effort of trading in order to get their Gengar. But what about you? Have any of these evolution methods actually made you not want to bother going through that Pokemon's particular line, or even just make you roll your eyes? How long did it take you to gather enough coins for Goldango? Please let me know down in the comments below. I'm dying to hear. Thanks for watching the video and for coming through and enjoying Scarlet and Violet with me. We've got so much content coming surrounding Gen 9 through the end of the year and beyond, including the top 10 strongest Pokemon, the best team for the games, and much more. If you're interested in more Mystic content, check out my TikTok and Mystic Umbreon Shorts YouTube channel. When we get to 5,000 subs on the channel, we're going to have a new series related to Scarlet and Violet that will be exclusive to there. So go subscribe. Also, if you're into fanfictions or Genshin Impact, check out Mystic Reads and Tevotchinary. I offer a ton of creative spoken word content over there, and I do a bunch of theories and lore videos surrounding Genshin Impact. So come join me over there at that Float Your Boat. That's all for now. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time for more Scarlet and Violet content.